down to Biscayne.
Yeah. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing, got it all band. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, it's power have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor live here on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick. And at 5 Reasons Sports, you got Brady Hawk. You can follow me at Brady Hawk 305. And Greg Sylvander, you can follow me at Greg Sylvander. Alex has got the night off. He'll be back with us later in the week. Thanks to everybody who joined us on playback. Floor plan, the Miami Heat have finished the first half. It's not really the first half. They're actually 2/3 into the season, roughly. But it's the All-Star break, and they are 30-25. That is exactly the same record that they had last season, a season that could have gone either direction and ended up in the NBA Finals. We'll see if that happens again. But this was a significant road trip, I thought, for the Heat, going into Milwaukee against a healthy Bucks team, and going into Philadelphia against a not as healthy Philadelphia team, but it's not like you had all your starters yourself. No Butler, no Rozier, no Richardson. Spo had to patch it. We know sometimes that's where he does his best, most creative coaching. And two different ways. They won with a big offensive performance against Milwaukee, with Jovic playing a huge role. Today, it was a little bit more Tyler Herro, in addition to Bam Adebayo and Duncan Robinson and Jaquez and Jaquez and Highsmith making some plays down the stretch. Before we get to the game of the night, Greg, as we head into the break, how do you feel? Because when last time I was on a podcast with you, which I guess was about 2 nights ago, you were pretty dour for you.
I was.
But now, I mean, it's not like they're surging into a 2 seed right now. Like, they're literally, as we're talking right now, I think Indiana's still losing to Toronto. Orlando is winning. So it looks like Miami may end up in a tie for 6th going into the All-Star break, with Orlando and Indiana a half game behind. And Miami has the tiebreaker over Orlando. They've beaten them a couple times. So actually, they're technically in the 6th spot. Do you feel any better?
I do. I said that this is when they usually shut me up, and they've shut me up. It was a moment where these 2 road wins are huge. They've solidified themselves now as a team that can get up to that 6th seed, get out of the play-in. There's still work to be done, right? But the fact that they're now 6-2 in their last 8 after that 7-game losing streak, that's huge. Like, that's a complete turnaround. And now you look, I don't know if these standings are updated, if Philly still has 21 losses or if now they have 22, but they're only 3 or 4 games in the loss column from the 4 seed where you get home court, and you can make up that kind of ground with the parity that's in the Eastern Conference. So I do feel a lot better. I feel like this was a response. It's not just that they got the wins, it's how they looked as they got them that makes me feel like that I'm hopeful going forward. It's almost like I don't want them to stop playing because they've started to find something here, although it did get close there at the end in Philadelphia tonight.
Well, if people are saying, well, wait till everybody gets healthy. Actually, when everybody gets healthy, they'll play worse. And that's not an indictment of one person or 2 people or whatever. It's just the way that this team plays. And again, before we get to the game of the night, and we're probably going to be controversial because I'm going to stay with the person that we talked about on the text feed, even though he had a rough final minute. But before we get to that, Brady, to me, what stood out tonight was defensively. That, Spoelstra at one point, he didn't do it very long, but he was rolling with a lineup that had Highsmith in the 3. I mean, this was just really like throw anything you can at the wall, try to get some of these combinations together. But here's what impressed me about them defensively down the stretch. There was a period there of 9 possessions where the Sixers got no field goals. And with that group on the floor included Tyler Herro and Duncan Robinson. And so, I understand the criticisms of Tyler. We'll get to some of those as we go forward here. But that group tightened up. I mean, Jaquez was out there with Highsmith and Bam, but I really like what Duncan's done defensively lately. And again, that seems to be a playable combination, which is something we're going to talk about a little bit more now that you don't have Josh Richardson. You may not have Rozier for a bit. Have Duncan and Tyler proven that they can play together?
100%.
I think you have to play them together. Not like all the time, but I think that the stuff that, first of all, the stuff they can do offensively, the creativity they can do with those two guys, even when they're not on the ball, is something you just can't pass up. You can't overlook it. The screening for each other, the fact that either one of them could run off a handoff and throw a lob over the top to Bam, which is something I did not think I'd be saying 2 weeks ago with the fact that Bam never caught a lob, it felt like all season. But you can play them together, and specifically, obviously, when you're playing in that zone. I really feel like Duncan and Tyler specifically have found a little bit of a rhythm in that space where they can just have to cover their own little space. They can rotate. They can play positionally, which is something they can do where they don't have to worry as much about being attacked as a mismatch guy. So they're two guys that I think do like the zone. Like, it was funny the other night when Jimmy was talking. He's like, I don't even like the zone. I don't like playing in the zone, but I'll do it. But it's not my favorite. Like, I don't enjoy it. But it's like, I think those two definitely do enjoy it. Like, that's something that they can definitely find a flow for. So, I mean, if they can continue to kind of play those two guys together defensively, I think Spo in this, you mentioned that one lineup. There was the one lineup with Jaquez, Duncan, Haywood, Kane, and Love. And it's like, who would have thought we'd see those five together in a game? Because that's just talks about throwing stuff at the wall. And the quick thing I'll say about the defense and on why I want to give credit to Spo, there are like small things that he did throughout this game where I'm like, you know, he always saves stuff for the playoffs. He doesn't show much in games like this, but there's just like the small moments. Like, there was one, I think it was like even the first quarter. It was first half for sure, where they were playing zone. They got Philly out of a rhythm, and they just could not do anything in that zone. Philly calls timeout. Miami comes back out. Philly probably has this whole game plan. Okay, we're going to do this in the zone, this, and this. Miami came out in man. like these just little wrinkles that Spo throws in to kind of just throw off a team, even if it's like on a random Wednesday night against Philly. Like, that stuff matters. And obviously they're buying in defensively, and especially when you have Haywood and Kane and these guys up top. So they deserve credit for the defensive stuff, because as much as we've seen the shooting and stuff come around, the defense is what they're kind of hang their hats on.
I want to do an entire podcast on this one topic this week, so I don't want to get into it too much here. But I do think we need to look into why Spoelstra's coaching methods seem to be more effective with fewer of his key players. Like, this is a trend that I don't think we can ignore at this stage, and there has to be a reason for it. He will never give a good answer about this because he doesn't like talking about himself and his own coaching. But I think we need to find an answer, because he has not been able to figure out, and maybe there's just no answer to it, but he's not been able to figure out the Bam, Tyler, Jimmy answer really for 4+ years. But when he has to throw Haywood Highsmith at the 3 to play with Kevin Love at the 4, Bam Adebayo at the 5, and he's mixing and matching Herro and Robinson in the backcourt, he's playing without a point guard, he's masterful. But when he has everybody, they have problems. And this has been a consistent theme, and I think we need to actually dive into it. But before we do, we want to mention the Rock Esports Gamer of the Night, Greg.
And now on 5 on the Floor, it's time for the Gamer of the Night, sponsored by Rock Esports Center, the place to eat, drink, and play all day. Host your next birthday party with them. Located at 15305 South Dixie Highway in Palmetto Bay. They've got a 5,500 square foot state-of-the-art center equipped with all the high-end power. Play all-day passes available for just $25, but if you mention 5 reasons, it's just $20. So mention 5 reasons or 5 RSN. You get to play all day for $20. And now, the Gamer of the Night.
All right, I'm going to stick to our guns here. Okay, I don't know if you guys wanted to switch. That last minute was rough. I'm not gonna defend some of the decision making at the end of the game. He's not a point guard. They need a point guard right now. They can't beat a press. They can't inbounds at the end of this game. Here's why I'm giving Tyler Herro the Game of the Night. Okay, and I know this is going to be controversial for a lot of people. He shot 10 of 23. He was 1 of 8 from 3. That means that he was 9 of 15 from 2. He had 23 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. Here's why I'm giving him the Game of the Night. Because whatever his flaws are, and they exist, I'm not going to, whatever the fit problems are, they exist. We've talked about him. I tell you, he just keeps coming back. Like, I give him credit for the game he played today. Like, he has a certain toughness to him, emotional toughness, I think, to deal with. He knows what's out there. He hears everything that's out there. He knows about the trades. We asked about everybody asked how would he react coming into training camp. I don't think that stuff has affected him in a negative way. He still has some things he needs to clean up. There's no question about it. The turnovers, some of the decision-making, for sure, okay? He's not a finished product there, and he may never have the upside that some have believed that he may ultimately reach. But look, with Jimmy out, they needed his production, and he provided production, and he provided a really good floor game today, I thought, again, until the final minute. He made good reads, and here's the thing. He's never going to get calls. It's just not. Like, officials know he's not physical, so they're not going to give him calls. But he finished at the rim tonight. He finished creatively around the rim. He made big baskets. That pull-up that he made, that little 17-footer that he made late in the game was a big shot. And I know Bam bailed him out on that offensive rebound. It's not a good decision by Tyler. He's going to have some of those. But everything that he's had to deal with this year, 23-7-7 to get a road win in Philadelphia. Greg, I'll take it. And I think we haven't given one of these in a while. I think he deserves it.
And to that point, like he really was kind of running things tonight. Like he was the catalyst for a lot of what they got done that looked right. And so to your point about them not having a point guard out there, he's having to assume responsibility, step out of comfort zones, and he's finding a way to still contribute, play really good basketball. I thought defensively he had his moments too. And that becomes a reoccurring theme when you start to see him make better reads and better plays there. So great game by Tyler Herro, deserves the gamer of the night, regardless of what happened late. Duncan gave him a run for his money early because it looked like he couldn't miss, but eventually Tyler Herro kind of was the driving force behind what got the victory ultimately up there in Philadelphia.
Brady, your thoughts on his game tonight?
Yeah, I thought it was just about the way he was getting to his shots, as you guys were talking about. Like, he was really attacking the rim. Like, yeah, he may not have gotten the calls, but he was really trying to like take shoulders into people. He was taking that extra step instead of kind of going for that floater. Like, did he take one floater tonight? I don't think so. Like, I don't even know if he attempted a floater that I can even think of. Like, he was taking those extra steps to try to finish at the rim. And it's not about what's happening on those certain possessions. It's about what that creates. It's about the fact you talked about that pull-up he hit. That pull-up is available to him because of those earlier rim attempts. You think about the play later in the game where he pulled Paul Reed with him and throws it back to Bam, and Bam dunks it to go up 6. That's happening because he's a real threat at the rim earlier in the game. And I feel like everything kind of just comes from that. And I thought there were certain points in this game. Like there was, I think it was the beginning of the second quarter, he had back-to-back passes to Jaime for layups kind of under the rim. And they were just like absolute, like great passes. Like it was like, I think Philly was in a zone at that point, and he would just wait for Jaime to just find a little bit of a gap, and he would just zip the ball back door, and Jaime got an easy bucket out of it. Like, yeah, maybe he's not a quote-unquote point guard, but he plays pretty close to it in this Heat offense. No matter what, if Terry Rozier is here or not, he has the ball in his hands so much to make these decisions. And on a night like this where he's getting to the rim, he has 23-7-7. I don't know. I thought this was like a pretty – this is kind of what you want to see from Tyler. This is what's going to open everything up, because there's not going to be many nights where he's 1 for 8 from 3. It's just not going to happen. But I'll take that gamble over the fact of him getting those rim attempts and kind of setting up an offense in that way. So, yeah, not a great – some questionable decisions late. Bam definitely bailed him out on that last offensive rebound. I thought that was like just a huge gritty play from Bam, like something that he should get more credit than he probably is going to get, because he's an all-star and he's a top 2 player on this team, and he's the guy that's making the gritty type plays that we've seen in the past. So he kind of bailed them out there, but Tyler still kind of set up a lot of the offense tonight.
And you mentioned it, and again, I understand that. We're getting a lot of this in the comments. 23 points on 23 shots is not efficient. It isn't, and that's because the threes didn't go down. I mean, really, like that's the thing. I mean, he's never going to have this number, that this true shooting percentage that people want him to have. He's not going to have it because he doesn't get to the line. Like that's the thing. I mean, how many free throws did he have? He had 2 free throws in the last game, right? Those were his first 2 free throws in the entire month of February. And tonight, what did he end up with? He had 2 free throws again, right? 3. Okay.
3 free throw attempts.
So that's the thing. He's never going to get those free throw attempts. So if his 3 ball's not falling, it's not going to look particularly efficient. I get that. And it's not, I don't want to say we're grading him on a curve, but I'm saying that from where the public discourse has been on him, they needed, I thought this was a strong performance from him until the last minute. Okay. And then I'll acknowledge that it wasn't strong then. And I just think that's a role he's not built for. I don't think, and that's one of the reasons they got Rozier. I mean, they'll inbound the ball to Jimmy or Terry. That's what they're going to do in those situations. They didn't have either. So I actually thought they should have been inbounding to Jaquez, and he would have made some better decisions there. All right, let's get to Bam because you mentioned him. 9 of 14 from the floor, 23 points, 14 rebounds, 4 assists. Of course, the huge rebound late. Here's the thing that's sticking out with Bam. They're getting him dunks. I mean, he's going for it, but they're getting him dunks. And that sets up everything else. And we've talked about the declining dunk numbers for him over the years. Some of that was a product of him becoming a better mid-range shooter and where his place was in the offense, Greg. And that's, getting to that dotted line. And then we've all said this year we think he's relying too much on that. But some of it is because they don't feed him.
Yep.
And it's funny, like since they got Rozier, even with Rozier out, he's still getting dunks. It feels to me like somebody showed up who would actually get him, because we saw Terry finding him in those situations. And now it's like, everybody's like, we have a vertical threat, right? Like, let's actually go to the vertical spacer.
The light bulb went off, and that's good for them. Like, they need Bam to get easy buckets. The fact that he hasn't had as many easy attempts has probably been one of the more frustrating things, because then the discourse becomes about his shot diet and his aggressiveness. You're seeing if they can get him a few easy attempts at the basket, maybe get him to the free throw line, then he's starting to get in a groove. All of a sudden he's hitting that shot at the dotted line. He's extending it out to the elbow. Like that changes the game for him. So he could have easily been the gamer of the night, the gamer of the road trip. He could have been as well with the triple double in Milwaukee, and then backing it up tonight with a, killer performance as well. It's one of those games where you see that once they get him the ball and he just gets a couple rim attempts, that things start to open up for him. And so I don't know how they can go away from that. And a lot of that has to do with Tyler Herro's done some good things, but also Duncan Robinson has been a huge part of that. And that's why when we talk about starting lineups and such, it's hard for me to move off the position of keep Duncan out there, because it seems like that's when Bam finds most of his openings.
So let's get to Duncan. Okay. Tonight, as I lose my headphones here, he ended up with what, 20? 7 of 11 for the field. So now I just did the quick math after the game. He's now averaging 17.6 as a starter. He's now shooting 50% from 3 as a starter. He's a little above that, like 51% overall. The numbers drop because the minutes drop when he comes to the bench, but so does the efficiency when he goes to the bench. That he's shooting about 37% from 3. He's under 45% overall. He's a different player on the bench. So, the natural question, Brady, we talked about it on Playman. Jimmy may beat Rozier back. Okay, the report on Rozier is more optimistic than I think we had believed it would be, but we don't know he's going to be back for game 1. I do think Jimmy will be back for game 1 after the break. So if that's the case, the first move is what? If you don't have Rozier yet, Jovic goes to the bench, Duncan stays in the lineup for now, and then what happens when Rozier comes back?
So we had this conversation on Playback where it's like a difference between what I think is going to happen and what I would want to happen, where what I think is going to happen is what you just said. Jovic is probably going back to the bench, and what that ultimately means is probably he doesn't get minutes, because if he's not starting, it doesn't seem like he gets worked into the rotation. So, but until Rozier comes back, Tyler and Duncan is the backcourt. Like, that is what you're operating with. And back to what we said earlier, it seems like it's something that can work, especially when Duncan's shooting this way. And as much as I said this on the last podcast last night, where it's like, as much as we praise the stuff he's doing in the lane, and he had moments like that again tonight where he's lobbing it over the top to Bam. He's been one of the real products of getting Bam those dunks. But like at some point it was like, dude, just go get the threes up. Like, just get your shots up from beyond the arc, because this team needs it. And you're an absolute specialist. And you're just seeing that. It feels like you're seeing it in his thought process when he's running around out there. It's like, okay, I'm going to hunt for this shot when I sprint around this screen. I'm not dipping into the paint. I'm not curling in. I'm going to just relocate back to Bam, back across into a handoff, and I'm shooting and firing over the top. Then we see times where we were watching a playback where there was the play was like 3 seconds left on the shot clock, and Caleb just hands it to Duncan. It's like, here, just throw it up. Just shoot it. That's our bailout option, and he hits it. And then there was one late in the game where he had the kind of like a pump fake in the corner, just kind of leaned over the top and shoots it over the top. Like, he's just playing with such confidence. you can't really slow that down. You have to kind of keep playing into that and letting him play that style. So yes, you keep him in the starting lineup. I really do think, Ethan, though, the interesting lineup would be putting Jimmy in for Caleb. Like you running Tyler and Duncan with Jimmy, Jovic, and Bam. And just seeing how it looks. Because maybe now defensively, over a long period of time, because this is also a very short sample size. Yes, it's a decent team, so maybe it's a little bit more valuable. But let's see how it looks over a longer sample size defensively. But it's just a lot of shooting. It's a lot of guys that can get out on the break around Jimmy. Because I was saying during this game, when you're watching the pace that the Heat are playing at right now, it's like you could tell that Jimmy's not playing right now because that's just how they're playing that certain style. But I still think they could play that style with Jimmy around those four guys because that's just how they play. So I don't know. That'll be the question moving forward. If Jimmy's back, obviously with a decent time before Rozier, maybe try to see if they can get into a rhythm. And then it gets to the question of maybe if Jovic is still finding a rhythm, it's like, okay, can we keep him here with Rozier when Rozier comes back? Can we try to see how that looks when you brought Rozier here for many different reasons? One of them, though, was to push pace and kind of control things in the offense, which is also what Jovic does. That maybe you just lean into that. You just kind of play into that style a little bit. So I don't know. It'll be kind of a big question, but Duncan's 11 of 15 over the last two games or the last two nights over 24 hours. Like you got to just let the guy off the leash and continue to let him play like this.
Well, there's a definite correlation between him starting and his confidence. I mean, I think beyond what we talk about with the fit for the team, he just plays better when he starts. That he just plays better. Like there's certain guys just play better as starters. There are a lot who will say that Tyler plays better as a reserve, or at least when he's staggered away from Jimmy. And I think there's a fair point to be made there. I still do not believe that at any point this season, Eric Spoelstra is going to make a decision to start Duncan Robinson over Tyler Herro at the 2. It's a different question if he'd continue to play them together, at least until Rozier is back. But I just don't think it's going to happen. And I think in the comments here, Greg, what's coming up a lot is pace when it comes to Jimmy, because that is the big thing. Jimmy plays a playoff style of game. It's not just that he ups his intensity in the playoffs. The playoffs lend themselves to Jimmy Butler's style. He wants to grind it down in a series, figure out your weaknesses, and hunt the mismatches. That's one of the reasons he's so damn effective. It's not just that he tries hard, okay? It's those things together. And they are going to have some choppiness, Greg, I think, when Jimmy comes back, because, again, then it's like the puzzle pieces. How do you make them fit? Because the other guy, I think, and maybe we should get to this here. Let's do the play of the night, because I want to get to this other guy.
And now it's time for the Insurance by Lynette Play of the Night, sponsored by InsuranceByLynette.com, an A-aggressive insurance agency. You can reach out to our friend Lynette at 954-581-8800. That's 954-581-8800, or InsuranceByLynette.com. That's InsuranceByLynette.com with 2 N's and 2 T's. Your best play for auto insurance, homeowners insurance, condo insurance, life insurance, or a retirement program. Reach out to Lynette at InsuranceByLynette.com.
All right, so which Jaquez player are we picking? What do we decide?
Brady has a
There were two. The last one, let's mention the first one. The first one was notable because Jaime doesn't pass in transition. We've discussed this many times. It's. I'm not saying it's a flaw. It's.
They need him to do it.
He finished. He's not a passer. He passed in other circumstances. He doesn't pass transition. He passed twice on that same play, right? He passed twice
after getting a steal.
And he finished after getting a steal.
He hit Duncan the initial time, and Duncan kind of throws it up to Jaime, where it looks like he was gonna potentially get like a highlight dunk before the dunk contest, and he like taps it back to Duncan midair, and Duncan ends up getting an and one out of it. Which we've been saying this all season, but like the Duncan Jaime connection is probably one of the best on the team. Like they just have like natural chemistry because they're two guys that can like do stuff out of random scenarios. Like they're two guys that never stop moving and can just make plays out of nothing. And that's kind of what you saw in that one. But then the other one, obviously the finishing play where they missed those relief buckets. Like they just have where he missed, the shot from, who was it? Duncan that shot it or whoever shot, Duncan shot it and it goes off the rim and Jaime comes out of nowhere. Like, that's the stuff they had all season. Like I remember being at the home games and every night we'd say like, okay, Jaime's going to have a shot with 2 minutes left that's going to ice the game or put them up or something like a relief bucket of some kind that's going to be like, okay, he did it again. But you've missed seeing that, it feels like, over the last few weeks, partly because he hasn't been playing. The other part is feels like he's still trying to find his rhythm. So, I mean, I think that play was just important in the context of like really trying to get him into a rhythm now before this All-Star break to kind of come back fresh after.
The second one, I mean, first thing, teams need to start boxing him out. Like we've talked about adjustments, but he finds those gaps. And I think that, and again, everybody wishes the best for Jimmy. And hopefully he's back after the break and his head clear and re-energized and all that stuff. And the personal stuff comes first. But I do think that at times this team, certain guys operate better without a full roster. And I just think that Duncan and Jaime were two guys who got out of rhythm. Duncan got out of rhythm on the bench, and I think Jaime has been out of rhythm for the most part since he came back from the groin injury. I think him going into the break, we know it's not, he's not going to be resting. He's going to be dunking. He's going to be in the Rising Stars competition. He's going to be running around to different events and all this kind of stuff. He's going to be enjoying it. He should. It's his first one, and hopefully it gives him a taste of it. And he wants to – a lot of guys say they do the Rising Stars, and they're at that weekend, and they want to improve to become an all-star someday and be in the big game on Sunday, right? So all that's good. I think it was important for him to get a little momentum going into the break because I felt like his season, Greg, got a little tired. It wasn't just the injury, but that even as much as he played at UCLA, he didn't play this much. Yeah. And it felt like he carried a lot the first 2 months of the season. He was the guy playing the most minutes some nights and playing all the fourth quarter minutes. I felt his minutes have been better. Oh, not just the past 2 games, but like the past 3 or 4 games. Looks like he's finding a niche again. Yep.
Yeah, he's accelerating up, and that's good because you're right. He took on so much responsibility early, and this is the first moment in his rookie career that he's facing real adversity where he's having to find his way and that kind of thing. So it's all healthy steps, right? Like that's what they have to go through to kind of figure out your place as an NBA rookie and get through a season. It's a long grind, and the fact that he looks a bit re-energized. Still not 100% to where he was before. I think that there's still steps to get there, but you never know. You have a good showing at the All-Star break. You also get a little bit of rest. I think that they'll probably be real careful with the fact that he's coming off the groin injury other than his obligations. So if you can kind of get a combination of a confidence boost and also a little bit of a rest before they come back from the All-Star break, that's huge for him. I've liked what I've seen, and they need that from him. Like, this is the weird thing. They've arrived at a place where Jaime Jaquez Jr. is an absolute pivotal contender or a pivotal contributor that they have to have. So it's good to see that he's starting to find his way and get comfortable.
Well, we mentioned Jovic earlier, and I just think it's going to be like this, where he has a game where the ball's in his hands a lot, and he gets in a rhythm, and he's going to have other games where he's either in foul trouble or gets out of rhythm, and Spo's not going to go back to him. And that's why I do think, as good as he looked in the last game, with everybody healthy, I think Spo's going to shelve him again. I just think he is. And I think he's going to become the Love replacement down the stretch of the season to just keep going to the playoffs. Yeah, exactly. Well, and again, if Rozier was out longer, I think they would commit more to this experiment of Point Jovic. But the fact that, Terry may miss another, 3 or 4 games, it looks like probably at the most if he misses that road trip. I don't think they're going to make a major commitment to a totally different play style. I just think it's Spo kind of using whatever he can use that night. And so at that point, I want to mention Highsmith because this is another of these games, and it's interesting because there are times he looks lost. He gets the ball down in the post, doesn't know what to do with it. We say we don't want him doing anything in transition. You don't want him over dribbling. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we've said about some of these guys in the developmental program. But there's also nights that they just leave him open and he actually makes some of them. The game in Orlando was one of those. I think he had 4 threes and 4 or 5 threes in that one. Tonight he was 4 of 10 from 3. He was 5 of 13 overall, but he was 4 of 10 from 3. I thought defensively, guarding the Maxis of the world is never going to look comfortable for him. And again, they did their best with him tonight. He had 30, but he played a big role in that zone late in the game. And I just thought played a strong overall game. To me, he's not a guy that you play 25 minutes every night. I think there are certain situations he's got his shot going or he's guarding somebody where where I think that you keep him in for a little bit longer. And Ronald puts the comment in here, Highsmith needs to get his confidence back. He passed up on a few open shots. When he doesn't hesitate, he's fine. When he hesitates, he's missing. Like, it's just, it's a confidence thing, right, Brady? And a hitch.
Yeah, and I by the way, I think this was his career high in 3-point attempts, which is wild. Like the fact of they were literally just leaving him open to your point. And he missed like literally like 3 possessions in a row. He just kept missing it. And then all of a sudden that fourth one he took, it was like, wait, he's shooting it again? And the fact of that's why when you mentioned the
like 3 out of 4 possessions, I think, and then there was that other possession where he got lost on a cut and Bam finally found him after 3 seconds. But
they even left him
guarded him.
They even left him in under the rim. They just doubled Bam randomly, and he got hit under the rim and hit that. So, like, I mean, the confidence to take after missing 3 or 4 threes and being able to take that next one and be able to find that rhythm a little bit, I mean, is important. I mean, it's a tough role to play when you kind of get off to that early missing streak, and then now you're forced to kind of take these shots, and then it's like, okay, well, if I'm not taking the shot, I shouldn't be out here because then the whole offense is thrown off. So it was good that he found that little bit of a rhythm, but I do agree. Like a night like this, I'm looking at the closing lineup and I'm like, okay, so they're without Terry, they're without Jimmy, they're not closing with Caleb. So like one of the guys that we thought would be closing playoff games is not closing in a game like this. But it's all situational. Everything is like Haywood closing tonight. There are nights where we're sitting here talking about like we felt like Haywood should be closing when it was other guys. Like there's all situational things where it almost felt like they were closing with Haywood, not only for the defense, because I actually thought Caleb played another night of really good defense. Me and Alex were talking about that on playback. Like I thought he had a really good game last night against Milwaukee, another one against in the zone, at the top of the zone, kind of playing man and kind of guarding at the point of attack and kind of finding that rhythm. But they needed the rhythm of just having an offensive system that is like, okay, if they are going to help off Haywood, at least we have a valve we could hit where it's like, okay, we could kick out to this quarter and maybe he can give us an open shot. So, I mean, it ended up working out, and he's just a guy that kind of needs to find that rhythm offensively. There's not much else he's going to provide offensively than the spot of shooting. So he's not taking it. But to your point, I felt like he was really good defensively too. Like putting Haywood and Kane at the top of that zone is nasty work. Like, how do you operate when you're a guy like Maxey, which he did, he had 30, but like being that type of guard and having to try to operate with that type of length and versatility and all that stuff in front of you, it's scary in that zone.
So it's a good thing they won, because otherwise we would have had to give the game of the night to Ricky Council IV, who I actually think might have been the most obscure random scrub heat killer that we've ever actually uncovered. There's been quite a few of them. We'll close the show here in a second. Before we do, though, let's go to the injury report.
And now it's time for the official 5 on the Floor injury report, sponsored by our friend Eric Rubenstein, the personal injury attorney. Born and raised in Lauderdale, Florida, lives in Miami, went to St. Thomas. He's a South Florida guy and a huge Miami Heat fan. But the important thing is he can help you get your money that you deserve when something happens to you. So reach out to our guy, Eric Rubenstein. Again, ericrubenstein.com, or Ask About Me, I Got You, on Instagram. And now, the injury report.
All right, not to disrespect Ricky Council IV too much, because he did have 19 and 10 against the Wizards the other night, but I think that's the first fourth that's torched the Heat in a long time. It's usually somebody again that we're not that familiar with that kills them, and Eric Reed couldn't stop talking about it tonight. A couple of things that come in here. Knicks and Philly lost. Obviously, the Heat beat Philly. Indy won. So they're sixth. They came back and beat Toronto. Miami is tied with Orlando atop not that it matters anymore, but atop the Southeast Division. If the Magic win the division, they'll probably hang a banner for it, since they did just retire a jersey for a guy who was there for 4 years and then bolted on them. But Greg, I mean, seventh is not where you wanted to be. Tied for seventh. But Philly's in striking distance. The Knicks have been in free fall, although they have a pretty significant advantage over you at this point. But they've got a lot of injuries right now. Milwaukee, you've proven you can beat the Bucks. I don't think they have any fear of the Bucks. I don't think that I asked Giannis the question when he was in Miami talking about Miami's players, and he seems to still have a healthy fear of the Heat. I don't think they want to deal with the Heat. So, and you get the same record as last year. Like, we're right back where we were, right? Like, nothing's changed.
But I think there's a little more upside than maybe the way that we felt last year. Just a bit. The team's deeper. I like this roster a little bit better. Since we are on the subject of injury reports, the fact that they have been able to cobble this together with Terry Rozier, Jimmy Butler, and Josh Richardson all on the injury report is a hell of a road trip. Like, we just can't paint it any other way. Like, we have to acknowledge when they get, their asses kicked 7 times in a row, but also when they play Boston tough in a game where there was multiple gut punches, and then you end up going out on the road and being resilient enough to find these wins, despite the injury report not being beautiful. This is a prime opportunity for them to move up in the standings. There's no reason why they can't get out of the play-in and shut me up. And all that play-in talk that I was talking just a week ago can go away.
All right, so that's where we're going to close the first half or the first 2/3 of the season. We thank everybody for following us here on the YouTube channel. We're going to be started on the YouTube channel tonight. We'll be back with the podcast later in the week. Also, join us on Playback. Download the app for free. We'll be there to watch Jaime on Friday and on Saturday and Bam on Sunday. So come join us there, and then we'll get you teed up for the second half of the season. Thanks to Brady. Thanks to Greg. Thanks to our sponsors, Rocky Sports Center, InsuranceByLynette.com, and also Eric M. Rubenstein or EricRubenstein.com. Have a good one, everybody.